Yep.
Okay. Hey, everybody, I'm Izzy Swan, and welcome back to the Mega Maker Show. I've got some special guests tonight, Joe Telling, the 3D printing nerd, and Greg from Greg's Garage. I'm super excited to have these guys on for tonight's discussion. We're talking about 3D printers and wood shops, and do they go together, and how well can they go together? So that's what tonight's topic is. Joel, why don't we start with you since you're, whoa, I didn't turn my volume off. Did you guys hear that?
I didn't.
All right, my bad. Joel, why don't we start with you tonight since you're new here? This is your first time on the show. Would you introduce yourself and
Absolutely.
Tell everybody what you're about?
Well, good day, everybody. My name is Joel Telling. I'm YouTube's 3D printing nerd. I've been 3D printing for a while, and my goal on my YouTube channel of the same name is to advocate and inspire people to 3D print. I do reviews of printers and filaments. I print models, and more importantly, I talk about how I print them, what I printed them with, and what I printed them on, so people get an idea of what they can do and what they're capable of, and then hopefully then I inspire them to start their own channel, acquire a 3D printer, or print something new that they haven't tried before. That's my goal.
Awesome. I want to mention before we jump over here to Greg, Joel was kind of instrumental in helping me get started into 3D printing. He helped me out a couple of times. Appreciate you getting me through those little humps.
You're welcome, man. Hey, anytime.
All right, awesome. Greg,
shelves.
Right. Greg, build you some shelves. We'll get to that later. Greg, why don't you shout out to everybody, let everybody know what you do and where they can find you.
Sure. I'm Greg Porter. I am on YouTube as Greg's Garage, and I have a website, gregsgaragekc.com. And I build all kinds of things. I always tell people I'm an architect during the day and I'm a welder at night, but I'm not just a welder. I'm a guitar maker. I'm a CNC nerd. I've built one, and I own another one that came from Izzy there. And this is something I'm trying to get into, and Joel has influenced me as well. If I duck out of the way, you can see the pieces and parts to my first 3D printer sitting behind me. So I can't tell you how excited I am to get that put together. And, the instructions are all in Chinese, but I think I can get through it with the help from my friends.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. I have tools that the instructions all came in Chinese as well. So been there. But so tonight we're talking about 3D printing. I'll mention real quick that I have the Dremel version of a 3D printer, which this is not a shout out for Dremel, but for me, it's about $1,000 machine, which is pretty pricey compared to some of the printers that you can get into now. But it's been a real good machine for me, a real solid machine for me, and I've really enjoyed that one. Joel, let's talk about a couple of the printers that you have. Like, let's keep it down to like 6 or 7 other printers you have, because I know you have like 50 of them or something. So.
I got too many. Let's see. Well, I have some cheaper printers. I have something called the Fabricator Mini. It's actually under $200. It's got a smaller build volume, but it's got acrylic sides, but it's got a good hot end. It's not a heated bed. It'll print really, really well. You just got to tune it up and make sure it's going. One of the machines I'm really happy about owning right now is the Prusa i3 Mark II 3D printer. It's getting to be probably one of the better 3D printers, if not the best bang for your buck 3D printer right now, just because of what it can do, how it's supported, and what it's capable of. That's a really, really good machine. If you're looking to get into 3D printing and you've got under $1,000 to spend, the Prusa i3 Mark II is not a bad machine. Behind me right over here, I've got some really interesting machines. I've got a Raise 3D N2 Plus. That's a $3,500 dual extruder 3D printer out of China that will print 12 inches by 12 inches by 24 inches tall. Next to that is a USA-made GMAX 1.5 XT Plus. It'll do 16 by 16 by 21 inches tall. And then right there, that is the Formlabs Form 2 3D printer, and it's an SLA printer. So it uses resin with a laser that cures the resin as it pulls the build plate up, and you can get down to really, really crazy amounts of detail on that thing. So
is that typically referred to as a stereolithic printer? Is that how they call those?
Yeah, I want to say yes. I'm having a brain moment right now, but I believe yes. It's stereolith. I'm gonna look it up because I feel stupid right now. Can't believe I can't remember that. But yes.
No, yeah, that's what I keep getting. I keep hearing them referred to as stereolithic. I think I'm saying that right. I
think so.
I could be very much saying it wrong.
Stereolithography, stereolithic. Yes. Okay. Good.
Phew. Right, cool. Yeah, I saw Formlabs had one that was I was drilling over there for a little while, and I talked to Bob Claggett. I don't know why I just drew a blank there. Bob's a great guy, and I asked him about his, and his. He said they're a bit more pricey to run, and for my purposes, when I'm going full bore, I'm running a spool at least through that printer a day, and I'm thinking, no, maybe I'm going to pass on that.
Resins are a little bit pricey. I think each container is a liter, and I think it's a little over $100 per container. Failures then become more expensive, but at the same time, if you're wanting to create jewelry, then the plastic extrusions aren't going to be as detailed as what you need. And so you need to have a different kind of printing technology. So you can create jewelry using this printer and then send it away to be cast in metals. So there's castable material that you can actually print with on that thing.
That's cool. I was actually thinking about making some molds. There's a Jeremy Thompson from Von Thompson, the YouTube channel Von Thompson's turned me on to this 2-part epoxy that you put together, and it basically turns into metal. It's as hard as it's as hard as steel when it forms. So I was thinking it would be really cool to print some inverse gears. Like if I wanted to make some involuted gears to print the mold of it, and then shove that stuff in there and let it dry out, and then you can just melt the plastic away, and then Bob's your uncle. You have a metal gear.
Oh, absolutely. There's different types of plastics that you can print with that will dissolve. So there's a PVA plastic. It's water. It'll dissolve in water, water soluble, just like the PVA glues, PVA plastics. It prints, so you can have this really dense support layer and just soak it in water for 24 hours, and it just disappears. There's also HIPS material, high impact polystyrene, that you can print with, and then you can, I forget what you can do, but if you print like ABS material and HIPS for the support, then you can make the HIPS go away and melt that away as well.
Sure. I imagine if it's a styrene, you can just use a thinner, and a thinner will eat it all up.
Probably. Probably.
You ever watch those YouTube videos where they've got like a bowl of thinner, and then they just put like a big chunk of polystyrene foam in it, and it just like does the whole melting marshmallow blob thing into the styrene and disappears. So it's pretty cool to watch. You got to be careful, because I can just watch that over and over again.
Looks like someone said you can use limonene to dissolve HIPS. They experimented with that, so that's interesting.
Cool.
Or probably a thinner, yeah.
So I want to quick shout out to the audience here, guys. If you have questions as we're going along, we'll go ahead and put them up there, and I'll try to hit as many questions as I can as we're going along, if it doesn't interrupt the conversation too much. And we'll try and hit those. And if you have a question for any one of the guys, please direct the question to that particular person. Or if just for everybody, just type out your question, and we'll jump on that as we're going along. So now, Joel is I say just. Joel is a guru of 3D printing. I've seen you print weapons.
I don't know about that, right? I know a lot of smart people. How about that?
Compared to me, you're Einstein. Okay, so we have, and that's the truth, though. I mean, you've been doing this. You have a lot more experience, and I've watched you put together fantasy play guns for cosplay. I watched you put together some wild builds, and I've seen you do some really big prints of. I want to say I thought you did like a Pac-Man ghost in
I did do a Pac-Man ghost, yeah.
And it was huge. It was like, I don't know, it had to be 18 inches, 12 to 18 inches tall.
No, the camera makes everything look a little bigger. I think it was about 10 inches tall.
Yeah, camera, same to me. I actually look like Brad Pitt in real life. It just makes me look big. And Greg, you do more of the fabrication side of things. So my curiosity to you is, I know you're putting one together and you haven't really used one a lot yet. What do you see yourself using the 3D printer for as it pertains to around the shop? What things do you think you'll be able to do with it that'll help your job be easier?
Well, right now I'm in the middle of a garage renovation is kind of what I'm calling it, and redoing a lot of the bits and pieces around the garage. So what's on my mind right now is how I use the garage, how I use the tools, store the tools, access the tools. And I'm starting to think about, because my job during the day is a designer, right? And the tool just opens up the door. You don't have to worry about creating molds or making a positive or doing whatever. You can do it all with the printer. And that's what's exciting to me. So if I need some type of special storage for tools, I want to stack them up a certain way, whether it's chisels or hammers or, something completely different. I think that's one piece. The other is I'm starting to make guitars, and I'm looking at making guitars in not huge numbers, but enough numbers that I'm going to need some jigs that are very difficult to make some of the compound shapes and that sort of thing. And to be able to design those and spit them out of a 3D printer is going to make my life a lot easier. When I look at doing it with a ball end mill or something like that in a CNC machine, it's a different process, and it's going to turn out a little different piece. I think the 3D printer is going to allow me a little bit more flexibility in that I don't need a 5-axis to do some of the things the 3D printer can do.
Okay. Scott, I'm SYD asks Scott asks why, and I want to jump on this question because I know you have done some stuff. Asks how come none of you have made a CNC or 3D printer yet? And I know for a fact, Greg, you have made a small CNC. I'm going to take that question first, and I'm going to answer it very simply. I'm a nuts and bolts guy. I can design wrenches and vices and machines with gears and all kinds of crazy stuff. But when it comes to electronics, I haven't delved into that world. And that's, for me, and I won't say a scary world. It's just going to take the right project for me to jump into it. And when CNCs and printers are becoming so much more affordable, you have to kind of equate the time and the expenditure. Where's the value in that for me? And for me at this point in my life, I know finances are different for everybody, but it's cheaper for me to go buy a CNC or a 3D printer than it is to actually try and learn how to build one. I will probably at some point want to jump into electronics, but I'm thinking that'll be more for robotics than it would be for fabrication type stuff. Greg, why don't you jump on that question real quick? Because I know you actually have built a CNC, right?
I have, and a little tear's going to stream down my face. I just cut it up and put it in the bed of my truck, and I'm taking it to the scrapper. And it's nothing to do with the way I built it or anything like that. It was well underpowered for what it was. It was a big tube steel frame, and it was fantastic in terms of concept. I looked at upgrading all of the motors, the electronics, and all the bits and pieces to go with it to make it into what I wanted it to be. And it was actually going to be less expensive to buy one that was done. And I bought yours, Izzy.
Yep. Yeah, you bought my digital wood carver. So.
That's right. And
yep.
I thought about using the brains of that machine to power the other machine. And like I said, it just, you get into linear bearings, just take a look at the price of a 48-inch linear bearing on eBay or anywhere like that, and you'll see that cost of entry is very high. And I think that's what dissuades a lot of people from making a machine like that. I will tell you the electronics are figured out. The software is figured out. People have the really hard stuff figured out. But on the consumer end, getting a hold of those precision bearings and some of those pieces and being able to fabricate it within a tolerance that, you're really talking a couple thousandths of an inch is the accuracy that you want to get the slop out of the machine. And that's very difficult if you don't have a machine shop at your fingertips to put something like that together.
Yeah, and speaking of the linear bearings, I bought some for a project. They were large ones, 1 1/4 inch linear slides with the housings and everything. And I have, just into 2 of them, I have almost $600 for 2 linear bearings. And granted, they were, I wouldn't call them specialty, but they're a lot larger than you would use on a 3D printer or even a small CNC machine. But it can get expensive. And then again, like you were saying, the accuracy is very, very important. Awesome Wood Things asked, what are some of the common 3D printing objects that integrate with woodworking projects? We're gonna kind of, I want to glaze over that question because we're gonna talk more about that here in just a little bit. But from my experience with the 3D printer, I've been using it for all kinds of things, and one of the things I find it very, very handy for is just, this is a simple thing, and I wouldn't go running out to buy a 3D printer for just this, but I use it to make connections all the time. Like if I have a vacuum hose that doesn't fit a port on a machine, it takes me 3 minutes in SketchUp, and 2 minutes in the software, the 3D printing software, and about 2.5 hours for the print to come out. But I could print all my own connections. I never have to go buy another connection. It's I don't have to worry about finding one that's going to fit or wrapping tape around a hose to make it fit in the end of something. We've all, if you're a woodworker, you know exactly what I'm talking about right now. So that's one of the things that I found very handy. But we'll get more into that conversation here in a little bit. Brian Way asks, what are some of the softwares? What's a good software for designing for 3D printing?
Well, I can take that one.
Yeah, why don't you jump on that one, Joel?
So for 3D printing, CAD is essentially the design methodology you want to use because you're printing things. So initially, nothing, you could use something like Tinkercad. If you go to tinkercad.com, it's a completely free service that's web-based, and you can design all sorts of wonderful things in Tinkercad. It's a drag and drop interface, and you can actually enter hard-coded values for lengths and constraints, and it just works. It's a simple interface.
Joel, what is a hard-coded value?
Oh, so if you're dragging and dropping shapes to manipulate, to do stuff to, and you want the side of this square to be 25 millimeters, then you can specifically say, hey, this side needs to be 25 millimeters, and then it automatically it sets it to it. Because if you're using a mouse and you're dragging and dropping things, you're not always going to have the precision as much as being able to enter a hard-coded value. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, what I'm trying to learn right now is a program called Fusion 360, and that's by a company called Autodesk. And Fusion 360 is more of a CAD system, and it's more familiar to designers, I think, that use CAD. A lot of people come from a program called SolidWorks, but it's really expensive, and it does things a little bit differently. But Fusion's 360 so far, it has a decent interface, and it allows you to make some really complex objects. In fact, you can make components, and Fusion will test the strength of the components. You can make things that move, and it'll test the movements of the parameters. It's got a lot of features. In fact, Bill Duran of Punished Props, he makes all of his space guns in Fusion 360 because it just makes sense. And so the models from there you can export to a 3D file that printer programs recognize, and then you can send it to a 3D printer.
Greg and I both have 3D Fusion on our computers. Greg is more proficient with it than I'm still learning. I tend to go back to SketchUp because I'm at this point freaking fast with SketchUp, and I am not fast with 3D.
But that's great. That's great.
So, but there's a new software that's coming out now. It's not a free one, and it's in the $3,000 range, but it's supposed to be as powerful as like SolidWorks, but as easy to use as SketchUp. And I just got contacted by them here about two weeks ago, and I wish I had the name for you guys off the top of my head, but I unfortunately can't remember it, and I don't want to go digging through the computer because I'm liable to shut the Hangout down. So that would be a bad thing.
I'll ask a question. I think I know the answer to this. Am I right in saying that any program that can generate an STL file you can 3D print with? Is that accurate?
Yes, so, that is an accurate statement.
Yeah, I come from a CAD background, an AutoCAD background. That was when I got out of school. That was what was in vogue, and I used it for, I don't know, a decade, maybe a little bit longer, 15 years. And you can actually export STL files out of AutoCAD. You can do them out of SketchUp as well. 3D Studio you can do them out of. I think Autodesk also has an online software that's called 123D.
Yep, 123D. That'll work as well.
That's a fantastic program that, you know, they're showing young children using that program to make 3D models to 3D print with.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. Well, yeah, for young people, that's the market that I'm really passionate about getting 3D printers and designs into. And there's a company called Morphe, And the Morphe app for the iPad allows you to create and design 3D objects using their touch interface that export directly to a file that's capable of printing on your 3D printer. It's fantastic, and it's aimed at kids.
I tell you what, my daughter is eyeballing the Dremel, and I told her as soon as I upgrade, she can have it. So it is every 2 weeks I hear, did you guys get a new printer yet, Dad? Did you get a new printer? So she's all about it, and she's 9, about 10. Ooh, I hope she didn't. I hope you're not watching, Abby. If you're watching, I'm sorry. So she's on. She's already into that. And it's just the interest alone that she's showing in it. It just gets me super excited about potential for what I can teach her with that. Because then there's a reason for her to learn 3D modeling. There's a reason for her to want to learn how components go together. So I'm really excited about that. Quick answer here to a couple questions, guys. What is something you've all figured out but would have liked if someone could have told you? Interesting question, Chad. I'm not sure. I'd like to borrow Joel for like a month and just have him come over here and show me everything I'm doing wrong.
I wish.
Because I tend to do something and then I go back and watch videos to figure out why I screwed it up. So.
I wish someone would have told me making stuff and putting videos about it on YouTube was more fun, because man, I would have been all over this back when YouTube first started. But instead, I had a job and was, working.
Right. No, I have a love-hate relationship with YouTube. I love YouTube. I love the audience. I love everybody on there. I love the social interaction. I hate making videos. Anything that means I have to sit in front of this box, but it's the we all have things we do like and don't like, and that's mine. So that's, which is a large part of it. But hey, is learning over. Okay, guys, sorry, I lost a couple questions here. I wanted to read off. 360 dimensions. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. Let's just go ahead and move on since we got back to it. Let's go back to Wacky Woodworks question, where he was asking about practical application in the wood shop, and some of the things that I've done, and again, I'm very limited. I've only had this thing for a few months. Granted, I did design a tool that's going to be out on the market next week. I'm so excited about that. And it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the 3D printer. Just that in and of itself had a lot of value for me, and I've used it for prototyping parts, and it's fun to print stuff out and just kind of test an idea, not necessarily for the strength or rigidity, just the size and if it'll work, if it'll incorporate properly. So that's been a lot of fun for me. But in actual woodworking, and I have some videos coming down the pipe, and I don't hold me to when. If I say I have a video coming down the pipe, it could be next week. It could be a year and a half from now. I just can't promise. That I did a test run a while back where I printed off some templates, router templates. And I actually used some router templates to create some what I would call really fancy, like box joint or dovetail ends. It needed tweaking. I had some of the sizes wrong, and like the joint probably had a 0.5 millimeter gap. It was like a little bit of movement in it. So those are some of the things that I've done. I think the first thing I printed off that I designed on SketchUp was a little 3D printed wooden clamp that actually functioned. It was a little wedge style clamp. For those of you who know me will know that makes perfect sense. So there's things like that have become really handy. The handy side of it are, the connections, being able to 3D print a hose connection that you need, or if you want a cell phone holder, like I had for a point there, I was using my cell phones for Twitch when I was doing Twitch, and I needed some cell phone holders that would go on top of a couple of my tripods. So I didn't go buy it. I didn't try to find something. I didn't have to sit down and, try to finagle a bunch of pieces of wood together. I designed one up and printed it out, and it slides right in. So there's that sort of things. Gears, educational props are another thing that I've been doing with it for teaching my kids how gears work. So there's lots of things like that. But in the wood shop, you know, where we're trying to talk a little bit about how a 3D printer can function well in there. It's come in handy for printing templates. It's come in handy for, connections. It's come in handy for printing guides for the router. I've actually even printed. I actually have to get up and go get something. I'll be right back. Greg, what do you think you're going to use for the printer?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, let's go just completely pragmatic to start with. I've got a bandsaw that's missing the little circular inset that goes around the blade, right, to keep stuff from falling into where the blade is. And you can buy them, but why not print one? You know, you just measure it, print it out, and now you can make 100 of them as you destroy them. Trying to think from a router standpoint, you know, on a router table, you're always the same type of a piece. You're always missing those little plastic inserts for different size bits. Those are just a couple quick ones, but then thinking to guitar making, right? The fretboard has a radius across it, and when you do inlay work, a lot of people use a Dremel, and they buy a little stand for the Dremel that stands it up straight, but they're constantly rocking on that radiused fretboard. So you either have to do all of your inlay work while the fretboard is flat and then radius it with the inlays in, or you could 3D print a radiused router plate. Now all of a sudden you're constantly, I guess it would be concentric with the radius that's on the fretboard. I mean, that's just kind of a cool one as we were sitting here that I thought about. It's like, yeah, I need to get that one going.
Right.
You know, brackets and little dividers, and I don't know. I mean, the world's kind of your oyster. Every time you pick up something made out of plastic, think, I could probably print that, you know?
Yeah.
The more I get into thinking about very complex geometry in terms of curves and intersections, things that don't cut well on a table saw or sand well on a flat, you know, sanding belt sander, those are where I think I would apply the 3D printer more.
Well, I pulled my my scrap box of, here's a cell phone stand from 3D printed cell phone stand. So, yeah, I was here's some really goofy things, guys. Something that are really simple. This is a center finder gauge, marking gauge that I 3D printed. So you know, if you wanted, you could actually print marking gauges and tools really accurately. It takes a little messing around and learning the printer, but I printed it perfectly accurately. I can put this on the end of a block of wood and, you know, just mark the X, and I've got a center finder. Here's my the first thing I ever designed and printed. This is actually a wedge style C-clamp, if you guys can see that. You put two pieces in there and you just push this wedge down and it clamps the pieces together. Battery holders for I know if some of you probably haven't seen it, but I built a drill powered Adirondack chair. Mm-hmm. And I've recently turned it into a scooter, so now it's a standing type of situation with a lot shorter wheelbase, so I can sharper turns. And my kids have been they've put 100 miles at least on that drill in the last 2 weeks. That drill has taken them at least 100 miles, and I'm not kidding you, because each battery gives them about a mile and a half worth of driving, and I know I've charged each one of those batteries at least. I've done at least 80 charges. So.
You're the only guy I know that measures drill usage in miles.
Right. And here's one, Greg, for you. You were just talking about the Dremel. This right here is a 3D printed harness for a Dremel, and in fact, I don't have it. I had this mounted on the wall. I had a Dremel tool hanging off of here and the hose coming out of. I had one of the older Dremels, the black ones before they started doing the gray ones. Now the gray ones have the little hook on the end, so I just have that screwed right to the wall. But before, this went to the little black Dremel I had the little extension coming out here, and this just mounted to the wall, and then there was a little piece that went over that. And that I actually didn't design this. I got this off of Thingiverse. Mm-hmm. Thingiverse. Somebody had modeled it already. All I had to do is downloaded the file and printed it out. Bob's your uncle. You know, and one of the things that I've been like, here's your cell phone, you know, your camera, cell phone holder. The camera slides in there. Well, not with the case on. You got to take it out of the case. But one of the things that I did, one of the things that I'm finding is that I'd always have this little bit of filament left on the end of a roll after a project or after a larger project. and I didn't know what to do with it. So I started printing glue scrapers. I'm not kidding you, just like these little thin cards. And I wanted to find one because I probably use that more than anything else of all the 3D stuff, all the stuff I've 3D printed. And it works great because it's plastic, and the glue, once it dries, just pops right off, and it's reusable. Here's some gears when I was originally thinking about doing the fast action bench vise. I was going to use gear track instead of threaded rod. So, you know, Greg, this actually went to that CNC machine. This went over one of the towers, and a larger hose went through here for the dust collection system.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, and that's just, I mean, literally just the tip of the iceberg of the different things that I've been able to put it to use in the shop. And these are all things that I would have to fabricate or buy if I didn't have the 3D printer.
Yeah,
So
I've seen a lot of people do blast gates for their dust collection. I don't know what those run a piece at Rockler, but I know they're not cheap, right?
No. Anytime you say Rockler, I hear cha-ching.
They make great stuff. It just
No, I'm not. Yeah, don't. I'm not making fun of. I'm not giving Rockler a hard time. They have some great tools. I just you know, it's like anything else. You know, woodworking, 3D printing can be an expensive hobby as well. But so these are just a few of the things that I've been able to apply in the wood shop, and these are all things for woodworking or that have a function for what I do, and they're not just these cheap plastic things that I can't have no function. They're actually usable items. They're physical usable items, and that's so for me. And I understand 3D printing is not for everybody. There's some modeling involved. There's software involved, and you know, for some people they're beyond a point where they're even interested in learning that. But for guys who are makers and who are interested in going it, there's a lot there. So those are just a few of the things I've done in the wood shop. Now, Joel and I were just talking about building some shelves. we might be trading some services here pretty quick.
That. Absolutely. So, if only you weren't thousands of miles away.
Well, you know, 3D printings don't weigh that much. You could ship, you could ship me like a little ghost, and I could ship you a shelf.
Sure. Sure. I mean, here, there you go. Look at that. There we go.
Right on.
Yeah.
Hey, that's the bad guy, isn't it?
This is a Decepticon logo, but this is printed
that's a Decepticon.
This is printed in stainless steel.
Oh, what?
Yeah, this is stainless steel that I printed, and then I polished it just with some sandpaper, which gave it a good shine. And then I could shine it up with a polishing compound, but no, it looks cool and it feels cool. So yeah, it's not just I mean, it's plastic with stainless steel in it. It's not pure stainless steel, but a lot of people just think that everybody's going to be printing nothing but Pikachus. Like we're going to have in 5 years landfills full of little plastic Pikachus. But what those people don't realize is material science is giving us all sorts of really awesome filaments with all sorts of different fillings like bronze, stainless steel, iron, carbon fiber, cork. It's just crazy.
Yeah, carbon fiber has become one of my go-to printing for materials. I use it all the time.
Isn't it great?
It's awesome.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and I was looking at these. You know, if somebody really wanted some serious strength to these, it would not be hard to pop a couple holes in here and fill the inside of this with an epoxy, or, you know, or even a what is that liquid steel stuff called?
Oh yeah,
you could put in there. So I mean, it's
not
like.
Imagine, I've printed with nylons before, and even though you have to get a printer that'll print at a higher temperature, the nylon stuff, it does not break. You've got crazy amounts of strength in that material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bought some nylon and unfortunately learned that I can't print nylon with the Dremel. It doesn't go that hot.
Not yet.
Right. Yeah, but it will.
You will. You'll get another printer one of these days.
Yeah, well, we have a lot on our plate right now, so hopefully. What's an average failure rate for 3D printing projects? 50%, 10%? What would you guys say?
Well, I'll go first on that one. So I think I answered that question in the chat, and I said the percentages are higher when you start out, but as you learn, then the percentages go down. I experience a little bit higher percentages at times just because I'm experimenting with new filaments and new printers, and I'm trying to dial in settings. But if I if I just want to print something for myself, I know what filament to use, I know the settings, and I know which printer to use, and there's a good chance I will not experience a failure. I mean, there's always mechanical failures or accidents, or, I mean, it's a physical object, or we're dealing with something melting to hundreds of degrees and trying to lay down in a specific manner. So, I mean, there's bound to be failures, but I'm experiencing less and less and less the more I know.
What software do you use? Let's say you go from, and I want you to answer this because you and Wes Swain both turned me on to the same software for taking STL files, turning them into printable objects.
That's right.
Which one do you recommend now? Is it the same, or have you switched up? What do you recommend?
Simplify 3D is still my my go-to, right? So I know it's the one you use. It's the one that. It's the one.
Sorry, guys.
It's the one Wes uses. It's the one I use. A lot of people use it. I like it because it gives you so much control over your 3D printer. I mean, you remember when you had your Dremel first and you didn't have Simplify 3D, you had very little control of what your printer could do. And once you got Simplify 3D, all of a sudden you realize this Dremel with the chains taken off was a great printer that could do all sorts of things. And that's specifically because of the control that Simplify 3D gives you when you're printing stuff.
Right. Yeah. Greg, what are you planning on using for your 3D printer?
Well, it sounds like I'm going to use Simplify 3D after the great sales pitch there.
Right.
Quite honestly, I'm to the point where I'm just getting ready to put it together. I literally got all the parts out of the box today. Last night I kind of opened the box to see what was in it, and then I spent the day editing video, our favorite thing to do. But I literally just laid out all the parts, so I'm going to get it physically together, and that was one of my big questions, because I know I am going to use Fusion to model. I'll probably use AutoCAD to model, because it is, for me, it's very, very fast to do very solid modeling in AutoCAD. It was really good at that for its time, but nope, my wife's coming home, so the garage door is opening. So, but
that's all right. My air compressor just went off. You're good.
I always tell people this is actually a real garage.
Right.
We park in here. So I'm going to mute while she comes in, because a lot of times she'll honk.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, Zach Blog said he's been having good luck with Wando Di3. No, I'm not saying that. Wanhao?
Yeah, Wanhao is a 3D printer manufacturer out of China.
Okay.
The Di3, that's their duplicator i3. That's a decent little printer. It takes a little bit more DIY and tinkering than other printers, but it's also, I think it's $300, $350, right? It's nothing.
That's for a $700 savings. I do a little DIY tinkering.
You would like it, Izzy, if you had some time on your hands. I think a style of printer like what Greg has, or a Wanhao i3 or something like that, maybe a Prusa machine, I think you'd have a ball. And then you would look at it, and then you'd be like, I'm going to make this better. And all of a sudden, you would have this room-sized machine, because something would click, and you would just understand it better than all of us.
I tell you what, I was before the show, I was catching up on some of Joel's videos, and he recently did a video. Refresh my memory on that giant badass machine. What's that called again?
It's called the Part Daddy, made by a company called Simi CNC out of Goshen, Indiana, and it's 17 feet tall, and it'll print objects 9.5 feet tall. The extrusion width of the bead of plastic that it spits out is 4 millimeters wide.
So I could literally print the housing for a homemade table saw right here.
Absolutely.
Here's your housing. Boom.
One of the actual real world use cases for it is printing furniture.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's cool. I can see an incorporation of like old school, like barnwood 3D printing and plywood, and this meld of medias into one really just badass design or piece of furniture. I would love to see a project like that. That would be off the chain.
They would. I'll put you in contact with those guys, because they're just a shop full of crazy guys who love to make cool stuff. Which sounds like a bunch of people I know. I bet they could collaborate with you, and if you gave them a thing to print on that machine, I bet you could get it and then bring it home and incorporate it into something.
Now you're talking my language. That would be a fun project. So I'm at current, and it's just talk right now. But my wife and I have been talking about possibly financing a large scale build in December and inviting a half dozen so makers down here, and just building like an AT-AT, like a real walking AT-AT that a person can ride in. You know, something just off the chain, something we can get in the Guinness World Book of Records and just have a total blast building. And so I really like the idea of these new concepts and these new ideas, but I would love to work with these guys and possibly get them to 3D print something for it. That would be really cool.
I'll put you in touch, man.
All right, very cool. All right, let's see what's going on over in the chat section. I have no experience with it, but I keep hearing great things about Pursa, Jose Pursa, the MK2.
So they're talking about Joseph Prusa. It's he owns and operates Prusa Research out of the Czech Republic. He and his brothers run the company. I think they have about 60 employees, and the printer they have out right now, the Prusa, the original Prusa i3 Mark II 3D printer, is kind of well renowned as being the best bang for the buck right now. And at Maker Faire, they just showed off an add-on for their printer that will print 4 materials at once. So you've got 4 spools of plastic going into it. You can do 4 different colors.
Wow.
Now, he was just on your channel, right, Joel?
Yeah, he stopped by my house.
Yeah.
That was him? That was him?
That was him, yeah. And his brothers, they were at the Open Hardware Summit in Portland, Oregon, and I'm in Seattle. So they just rented a car and drove up. And then we went to a bar and filmed a little video, and then they took off for the airport. It was great.
Oh, that's funny.
I got to tell you, it is starting to get windy here. So as Seattle was expecting some strong winds, it's starting to get windy. For some reason, I just blank out. It's probably because my power went out.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the heads up. Thanks for the heads up. We're gonna be in the midstream, and he's just like, just. So we've got this whole, and I watched a video of Joel. I'm asking you a lot of questions. I'm sorry.
Ask me anything you want, man.
Spotlighted you here all on accident. But so I just watched the video that Andy Berkey did, and many of us know Andy Berkey. He's part of the community, and he does some cool stuff. And he did this little video of you. And I got really excited watching the video because you were very adamant about not necessarily 3D printing, but the new technologies that you saw at the recent Maker Faire. And I was telling you earlier, I was literally ready to jump out of my chair and start cheering you on. And where do you think that passion comes from, man? I mean, you got excited about this, and I love seeing that. And I'm a bit of an idealist. I think everybody on the planet should make stuff, period.
I agree. Well, Izzy, my excitement just comes from, this is cool, right? It's like our kids, right? My kids, they know iPads, right? They'll never know a typewriter. They'll never know a VHS player. They'll never know Betamax. They'll never, whatever. So this is old hat to them, but this is cool. And so I try to teach them, look, you guys, this is great. And that's what happened at Maker Faire. You're walking around to these booths of people showing you some of the greatest stuff that you've ever seen. And you just walk by the booth, you give it a glance, you're like, hey, yeah, there's someone. I was next to a guy who made a printer out of Legos, right? And then see me CNC had that giant printer. And then there's some 9-year-old programming Arduinos. And that's just in the electronics pavilion, right? There were things that breathed fire, and there were woodworkers. There's that Wazer, that desktop water jet cutter. What the heck, right?
I will be one of the first people to own one of those Wazers. I promise you that.
You totally deserve that. And so you can't, making is cool because everything is amazing. Everything is awesome. Just like the Lego movie said, just take it all in, take a step back and be like, whoa, look at this. This is awesome. Create stuff. Just make a block and 3D print the block. And then you can look at that block and be like, I made this block. Mm-hmm. Just start from there. Yeah, it helps that I drink Red Bull.
Yeah, well, I do that with my coffee. You got to once you mix. Don't worry, a couple of years you'll graduate to the Red Bull and the coffee thing. So.
Oh man, I don't know if my heart can take that.
I don't know that mine can either.
Well, Izzy, I'm gonna attack right onto what Joel was talking about. One of the favorite videos I made was the day the CNC came to life, and it goes back to, I said something like, I narrated the video, which I never do, but I was so excited about it. When I was a kid, I told my dad I wanted to build a robot, and I tried. And there was nothing back then to help you build a robot. Even if you could get a robot built, it was just a thing that kind of scooted around, right? I mean, it just had wheels and it moved. Those were the robots that you saw. And as I got older, you start to see with an Arduino, a thing that you can buy for $15. You can build a controller for a CNC machine that can conceivably build almost anything you can imagine. And, to do the CAD file and to do all that stuff, it's like, that's old hat, that whatever. And then all of a sudden I put a chunk of foam in the CNC machine that I built, and it starts routing it out. And it's exactly what I wanted it to be. And there's no comparison to how cool, just like Joel's saying, how cool that is that we can all do that in our garage. And you can do it, for a couple $100, you can be in the game easily.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's just touching on the passion about making and all this new technology and stuff. I was at and this isn't to toot my own horn, and I don't want that to come off like this. At the last not Woodworking in America, the woodworking show in Atlanta, I was out there, and there was an ex-Marine. And he was pretty messed up. He brought his family down, and he'd kind of gotten back into woodworking. And his son is into robotics, and he was very proud of him. He brought this cool machine. I mean, he watched a video of mine about using gear tape to make gears, actual working gears with the same stuff you'd use on a 3D printer. That gear belt drive. I just reversed it, wrapped it around some material, and he made some gears. Well, his son had saw that video and started making all these little robots. And I mean, he's programming Arduinos and Raspberry Pis, and he's making things that squeeze toothpaste. It's like a toothpaste dispenser, and he's doing all these really cool things. And he brought this down, and he's just excited to show me. And I was like, you made it so I could make these gears with these, and he was showing me all these little gears that he's made with the gear tape. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this kid is smarter than I am, and he's like 10. So, it was amazing that there's that community out there of people that like Joel who are passionate about, like you, and like a lot of these other guys are out there who are passionate, not just teaching woodworking, not just teaching welding, but teaching electronics, teaching 3D printing, teaching all of these different forms of processes of how to make things, right down from turning a skill saw upside down so you can use it as a table saw to hey, let's build a rocket. It's here, it's there in the world. So very cool, and I understand that passion. And Joel touched on something that was really hit home for me, was that it's easy to walk by something and just at a glance say, oh, that's kind of cool. But until you really stop and look at it and, look at all the work and effort and thought and engineering and just creativeness that's gone into the process of designing and building this machine that helps us design and create more, it's off the chain. And I get that with my kids. My kids are hard to impress. They are. They get you watch a movie now. Can you imagine having the kind of graphics we have in a movie now back when we were youngsters watching Star Wars when it first came out, and we were just in awe, like these ships flying around in space. And my kids watch it now and goes, man, that doesn't even look real. So, but it's one of those things where I get like Joel from time to time. I don't express myself as well because I get really overly excited about it with my kids, at least. So where are we going? Okay, we got about 8-10 minutes, guys. If you want to hit some more questions up in the chat section, let us know. We'd be happy to answer some more questions here in the last 10 minutes. Now, Greg, you haven't had a lot of time on the floor today.
That's quite all right. I'm happy to be learning what it's going to take to make this thing behind me go once I get it together.
Yeah, Yeah, me too. Joel will tell you there was a time there I was probably hitting him up 2 or 3 times a week with questions like on the Facebook private message. Hey, Joel, I'm sorry to bug you again, but
Well, it was interesting, right? Because Izzy would hit me up, and I remember one very specific incident where you were trying to export something to the SD card for the printer to print, and it wasn't showing up on the SD card. And we figured it out that you had spaces in the file name. So the Dremel itself didn't recognize spaces in the file name. So even though we're dealing with 3D printing, a physical process, we're still, I mean, that's a computer thing, and it's still something that their computer just doesn't read well in the printer. So it's weird, right? You're troubleshooting material science, you're troubleshooting heaters and beds and CNC movement, and that one was just your computer doesn't recognize spaces in the file names, right?
Right.
I remember
that.
So I gave you that one, right? I don't think that's something you could have found out.
No, I was fighting that. I've been fighting it for a few hours, and when you did that, I was like, so you mean I just have to go push the forward arrow and the back button and that problem solved? And that's what it was. So it's the little things, it's the little things that'll get you. So we were talking before we jumped into the chat here, or the live hangout, about making mistakes. And I think that's something that's always important to touch on, especially when you start getting involved with new technologies like CNC, like 3D printing, and all the crazy stuff that's coming out. Is just don't be afraid to make those mistakes. In fact, celebrate them, I think, because you're going to learn from those mistakes. And as my father would say, frustration is the best teacher. You learn better from screwing up than you do from not screwing up. Those are the things that always stick with you.
Well, I'll jump in here. The interview that you did with Joseph the other day, Joel, one of the things that impressed me, he was talking about their printer farm and how they're printing all the pieces that they're using. And he says, as we learn things about the machine and as we make improvements, we don't have to make molds. We don't have to go back to a factory somewhere. We can change them and instantly implement this thing. And what I see is, at some point, I guarantee him and his brothers were making all kinds of mistakes. And they're to the point now, right? They're to the point now where they have 100 of these machines or 1,000 of these machines just cranking out parts because they did go through those mistakes and they learned what didn't work. And now they're able to just go 1,000 miles an hour making pieces and parts to help other people make things. I just think that's such a cool thing to think about. Once you get the process, once you go through that hard time, you've got the blueprint, and it's Clone War time. You just repeat, and out it goes. Such a cool thing.
We had a quick question, Joel. I'm sorry to interrupt. Best bang for your buck printer, and Zach said that that right now that's the Prusa. Prusa. Anybody that knows me know I can't pronounce or spell anything. You're right. The Prusa is. He's mentioned that. What else would you say that's on the market that's a really good bang for your buck printer if you're just jumping into this and it's something that you want to try out and you just don't want to break the bank?
Well, the Prusa is really good. You can buy it fully assembled, or you can buy it as a kit. The kit itself it's not like a kit where you have to solder and cut wires. They've pre-cut and there's connectors, so there's no soldering. It's just putting it together. The kit is great because then you learn about your printer as you put it together. There are kits out there that cost less than $200 that, require wire cutting and soldering, but I don't really recommend those for a first timer. The Dremel series of printers is decent because they've got good support, or at least I've had good experiences with their support. Their support is US based, and it's got the Dremel name behind it, so it does a good job. I really like the Prusa machines. What was the other one? There was a specific one. As far as best bang for the buck, though, we're starting to get into things that are a little bit more DIY. Like there's the it's $9.99 for the kit from CME CNC. It's one of those Delta printers, so it's it's tall and it's got the three columns and 3 arms. So for $9.99 you get a kit that you have to put together, but at the same time you get this massive build volume, and you're learning at the same time. So your best bang for the buck really depends on where your technical level is, because if you're a little bit technical and you want to learn, you can get away with spending less money because you're going to be doing a little bit more work. But if you just want to go get something and print with it, the fully assembled Prusa machine, the Dremel machines, if you have some money, Ultimakers and Lulzbots and all of those, they'll all do you fine.
Mm-hmm. I think Greg's a good fit for the technical. Greg, that's the way he thinks. I think I'm pretty sure Greg dreams in math equations and technical drawings. So, yeah, we're learning 3D Fusion, and like I'm just learning how to navigate it. And Greg calls me up and goes, "Yeah, I'm having this little trouble with the exporting and the G code thing." I'm like, "What? You're exporting G code already?" I just learned how to extrude something. Jeez.
Well,
good stuff.
The old CAD monster comes alive when that stuff comes out. I mean,
I'm gonna give away one of Greg's deep-seated secrets for 3D modeling and CAD drawing, and I don't know if he wants me to or not, but I'm gonna tell everybody the same thing you told me: how to get faster and more proficient at 3D modeling is learn how to use your mouse with your left hand.
That's right. Wow.
Whoa,
so are you
what?
doing that, Izzy?
No.
Oh.
I tried it. Fair shake. I gave it a fair shake. I tried it for, I don't know, about a day and a half. And I was like,
yeah.
Nope.
It takes at least a week, if not 2 weeks. But once you get it, it's like riding a bike. You don't ever have to worry about, you can take 2 years off and go right back to it.
Because that makes sense. Because I'll use my left hand for typing, letter commands, and then I'll take my right hand off the mouse and type in numerical commands on my 10 key here. And I realize I'm like, there is a lot of, because I'm the kind of guy that thinks, all right, how many times am I going to move my hand back and forth in my lifetime? And if that's a half a second, if I add that up, I'm going to spend like 6 days in my life moving my hand back and forth. So.
Yeah. And learning the 10 key is so easy.
Right.
Oh well, but yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. We have 1 minute left. First of all, Greg, thank you very much for coming back. And I want to make a quick announcement that I'm trying to round up a few guys and to be regulars on the show. This won't be like, hey, we're going to invite new people every single episode, but we're going to have regulars on the show. Greg is going to be one of them. Joel, thank you so much for agreeing to be one of them.
Anytime, man, anytime.
What I'm trying to do is line up 8 or 10 guys, and we've got most of that already dialed in. I'm looking for a professional welder. I got talking to a couple of guys. One sounds like it's not going to work out. And these are all guys who are professionals and very experienced in what they're doing. So they're going to bring a lot to the table, like Joel with 3D printing, lots of good information today. And we really, really appreciate that.
Hey, just a quick thing. I know a lot of people had 3D printing questions in the chat. I know not a lot of people know a lot about it. I'm very social. You can find me at Joel Telling on Twitter, or leave comments on my videos. I've got a public email address on my YouTube channel that you can contact me. I'm very social. Reach out to Izzy if you need to get a hold of me as well. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. Joel, thank you for tolerating me so much at the beginning there.
Anytime. Hey, you're building shelves, man. It's all for
right,
a purpose.
Absolutely. And you guys, I will. If you're not subscribed to Joel or you're not subscribed to Greg, their YouTube links are in the description box below. Please go do that. If you're not, you're missing out on some great content, great guys, really putting a lot out into the world. So thank you guys for doing that very much. And thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for having me, man.
And for everybody out there in the audience, thank you for all the questions today. I'm getting better at this whole thing about reading the questions. I think at some 20 or 30 more of these episodes, and I'll have it down pat. Maybe 50. So, thanks, guys. Good night. You all have a good day.